Excuse me. Hi, boys and girls, mommies and daddies, and grandmommies and grandpoppies. Today's story is Going to the Library. Now, you know, the whole gang love to read. We've talked about that many times. And Little Bad Wolf and Ally the Alligator always asked the boys how they had so many books to read. Why, their mommy must buy them books all the time. And all they would do is smile and say, "We got a lot of books." But what they did, oh my goodness gracious, what they did. Mommy took them to the library every 2 weeks. And so yesterday was Saturday in the woods. Yesterday was Saturday, and they went to the library. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. They were so happy because they looked so much forward to it. Now, they had a habit, and the librarian, the lady in charge that helps you with your books, she knew what they were doing, and she knew that they were such good little boys that she didn't have any problem with it. But they would just get every book practically that they could carry. And as long as they read them all in the 2 weeks, she didn't mind. So they hunted and hunted, and they had read almost everything in their section. And so, excuse me, and so they got their books, and they took the longest time to check out their books because they had read a whole lot of books, and they traded. If they ran out of books in that 2 weeks, they traded with one of their brothers, and so it was, wow, they read all the time. And okay, with school and with their sports, and they still mowed the yards on the people that needed them because it was getting, colder, and the grass didn't grow as much. So with all their activities that they were doing, boys and girls, the piggies were just, it was lucky they read that many books. And so they were talking up in their room as they were getting dressed, and Squiggly says, I think we need to cut down on our books because I don't know about you boys, but I almost didn't get through with all my books because we've been so busy. And Wiggly says, I agree with that, Squiggly. I think that's a good idea. I think we need to cut down a little bit. So Piggly agreed. Excuse me. Now Piggly could read, excuse me, Piggly could read pretty good, really, really, better than the most first graders, because Mommy had taught them to read when they were, I think, 4 or 5 years old. And so, well, good morning, Penny. So they just, but Wiggly could read better than Squiggly. Now, you all know how smart he is. He read the very best. So they got talking, and so they agreed to cut down on the number of books that they checked out. And they knew that Mommy would be glad, and they knew that the librarian understood too. So they got to the library, and they're looking up and down, and they're looking up and down. And they had already checked out, like I said, half of these books before. And so it was really getting kind of hard. So the librarian came up, and she said, I think you boys could read this other row over here, this other aisle with all these books on them, because I think that you're doing so good. Oh, it opened up. Oh my gosh, so many books. Oh my heavens. And they could read them, and they could understand them. And that's the main thing, boys and girls. If you don't understand a word that you're reading, always go to ask Mommy and Daddy what that word means, or if you're older, look it up in the dictionary, because if you don't know how to read that word, if you don't know how to pronounce it, well, then you won't know that whole sentence, what it means. So boys and girls, always go look up what that word means. So the librarian knew that there might be a couple words here and there that they wouldn't know, but they knew that their mommy would help them. Well, they were just in book heaven, or as grandmommies and grandpappies say, they were just in hog heaven. Oh my goodness gracious, they went up and down the aisle and they just looked and they looked and they looked. They had books. And then Squiggly says, wait a minute. And they both of them looked at Squiggly, and Wiggly says, what? Piggly says, what? And Squiggly says, remember, we're not supposed to get so many this time. Oh, okay. So then they had to pick out the most they could, but not the whole bunch that they used to pick out. So Piggly picked 5, and Squiggly picked 7. Well, Squiggly, he picked 9 books because this had to last him 2 weeks. Piggly thought he could read more than 5 books in 2 weeks, but he was in charge of the lawn service, mowing the yards, and he was in the glee club. And remember, they were teaching all the other boys and girls the songs that they learned from Miss Amanda, because you remember now they're going over to see Princess Hannah at Christmas vacation. So they wanted to teach her some of the songs, and they wanted to sing one special song for the Christmas party. So with the sports that they were doing, because they were playing basketball now, and they were teaching the other kids how to play basketball, maybe 5 books would be good. And Squiggly says, maybe I'll take 2 of these back and I'll only get 7. And Wiggly got kind of worried, and he says, if you're only getting 7, maybe I better take 1 back and only get 6. So they went up to the desk, and her name was Miss, what was her name now? I forget. Miss Garrison. I knew that I had met her one time. Her name was Miss Garrison, and she met the boys at the desk, and she goes, well, boys, you don't have very many books this time. And Squiggly says, yeah, we're going to have to cut down because we're so busy. But we got the best ones that we could find. And Miss Garrison, thank you so much for letting us go on that next row of books, because those books on both sides of the aisle, oh my goodness gracious, we had such a good time picking them out. And Miss Garrison, she just smiled and smiled, and she said, I knew you boys would enjoy those books. Now, if you have a word that you can't understand, what do? And they all at one time said, we ask our mama. And she said, that is right. You go ask your mama or your daddy, or you find a dictionary. And they said, yes, ma'am, we do that. So Piggly got 5, and Wiggly got 6. I need to write these down in case they don't turn them back in. And Squiggly got 7. And Miss Garrison says, okay, boys, bye-bye. And with that, Mommy drove up. She had went down to the store while they were getting books, and she drove up, and they hopped in the car, and she said, did you get any good books today? And they said, oh, we sure did, Mommy. We can't wait to start reading them. And she said, good. And she says, but you don't have very many. Well, they told her what they had decided. And she said, boys, I'm so proud of you for realizing that maybe you can't read as much as what you do in the summer. I thank you very much for that. I am so proud of you. Well, they love to please their mommy. They really love to please their mommy. And boys and girls, that is the end of this story for today. We will be back on Wednesday. Now, your grandmommies and grandpappies and mommies and daddies, don't forget to like, to comment. You could do that, and to share. Now, I've asked you before if anybody had some really good memories of them, or some funny memories of them growing up, to please write that down in your comments, because possibly the little pigs could make a story out of that. You reckon? This story was brought to you by one of our viewers. I don't give names, but I think she knows who she is, and it's also some of GrandMommy's favorite story or favorite happenings. But this lady suggested that the pigs go to the library and get a whole bunch of books, because when she was a little girl, apparently that's what she did. She brought them all home and read them as fast as she can. In fact, I think maybe her and her sister was competing with how many books they could bring home. I'll have to check with the sister to find out. So, boys and girls, mommies and daddies, grandmommies and grandpuppies, hit that like button, hit that share button most of all, and hit the comment button and type a little bit of words down there. Okay? All right. GrandMommy will see you Wednesday morning. Bye-bye.